Most people see mosquitoes as nothing more than a small summer annoyance. They buzz around your porch, land on your arms, and leave itchy red bumps behind. But up in the trees, the story can be very different. A nest full of newborn birds cannot move away from the swarm. The chicks are still bare, weak, and completely dependent on their parents. When mosquitoes gather around the nest at night, the smallest birds have almost no way to protect themselves. One bite may not seem like much, but dozens of bites can wear down a tiny body very quickly. And while this quiet struggle is happening in the branches, another backyard animal is already on patrol. A dragonfly may look delicate when it glides over the grass, but to a mosquito, it is one of the most dangerous hunters in the yard. It waits near bird baths, ponds, wet grass, and anywhere small insects rise into the air. Then, in a flash, it cuts across the yard and snatches its prey before we even notice what happened. Today, we are looking at the quiet little air war happening right above the lawn. And once you understand what dragonflies are really doing, you may never look at your backyard the same way again. To truly understand the weight of this neighborhood war, we first have to look at the real threat on the ground. Most homeowners think of mosquitoes as nothing more than an annoying summer nuisance that leaves itchy red bumps on their skin. But to the local wildlife population in your yard, mosquitoes are a major biological hazard. They are highly efficient vectors for deadly pathogens, most notably the West Nile virus. This virus heavily impacts North American bird populations, causing massive, sudden spikes in mortality for specific avian families. It is particularly brutal on species like the blue jay, which can develop severe neurological symptoms and die within days of a single bite. When a female mosquito hovers around a bird nest, she is hunting for the protein-rich blood meal required to develop her eggs. Nestlings are completely naked when they hatch, meaning they have no defensive armor to stop insects from biting them all night long. A heavy infestation can cause constant irritation, chronic blood loss, and secondary infections at the bite sites. This systemic stress rapidly weakens an entire brood, making it almost impossible for them to survive to the fledgling stage. But right as the insects move in toward the low branch lines, a sudden shadow cuts across the grass. A sharp flash of iridescent green and amber streaks through the humid air. If you are standing at the sink, looking out the kitchen window, you might spot this creature and think it is just a colorful bug buzzing around the lawn. But there is absolutely nothing harmless about what you are looking at. You are witnessing a highly evolved, predatory design that has been running the skies for over 300 million years. Long before the first dinosaur evolved, this creature's ancestors were already the undisputed masters of the prehistoric air currents. Back in the Carboniferous period, they grew to the size of hawks. With wingspans stretching over 2 feet wide, they survived multiple global extinctions by simply downsizing their frames and sharpening their hunting instincts. And today, they are running the exact same survival skills right over your patio. If you watch a hawk dive for a rodent, or an outdoor cat stalk a robin, you are watching a basic pursuit. The predator spots the target, waits for it to move, and then tries to chase it from behind. They are constantly reacting to where the prey is at any given split second of the chase. If the prey makes a sharp, unpredictable turn, the predator loses its footing or misses the angle entirely. The dragonfly does not chase its prey. It calculates an inescapable collision course. Inside its tiny brain is a complex neural map built entirely for real-time spatial geometry. When a mosquito takes off from the stagnant water in your gutters, the dragonfly does not fly toward the bug's current position. In milliseconds, it gauges the target's speed, its exact angle of flight, and its projected path through the air. It predicts exactly where the mosquito will be 1 second into the future, and launches itself directly to that future coordinate. This means the dragonfly is essentially catching the prey by meeting it at the finish line. By the time the mosquito even notices the shadow, it has already flown directly into a waiting trap. The dragonfly opens its 6 legs, which are lined with stiff, needle-like spines, creating a tiny basket to scoop the prey midair. It clamps down with powerful jaws and consumes the meal on the wing, without ever needing to slow down or land. To our eyes, it just looks like a chaotic, random zigzag across the fence line, but in reality, it is a flawless, mathematically precise execution. The visual systems backing up this flight path are unlike anything else in the animal kingdom. Humans see the world with a single lens in each eye, processing about 30 frames per second. Because of this limitation, a fly or a mosquito moving across our vision looks like a fast blur. A dragonfly looks at the universe through a completely different temporal lens. Their two massive eyes cover almost their entire head like a motorcycle helmet, housing 30,000 individual lenses. These lenses gather light from every conceivable angle, giving the dragonfly a true 360-degree field of view with zero blind spots. They can see what is happening above, below, in front, and completely behind themselves all at once. More importantly, their brains process visual data at an unbelievable rate of 300 frames per second. When a mosquito flies through your yard, it is moving at top speed to you. But to a dragonfly, it looks like it is floating in slow motion. The dragonfly isolates the target, removes the element of surprise, and strikes with complete accuracy. That is how it maintains the highest hunting success rate on the planet. But sight alone does not secure a 95% success rate. You need the physical mechanics to back it up. Aviation engineers have spent decades studying how these insects move, trying to find ways to replicate their agility in drone design. Most flying insects have wings that are locked together or driven indirectly by vibrations in their chest muscle. When their body moves, their wings flap up and down in a rigid, limited pattern. But a dragonfly's anatomy is built for independent articulation. It features 4 distinct wings, and every single one is managed by its own dedicated muscle group deep inside the thorax. This allows the dragonfly to flap its front left wing up, its back right wing down, and alter the angle of the other two simultaneously. They can perform maneuvers that seem to violate standard flight physics. They can hover perfectly in one place over your lawn, drop straight down like a stone, and fly completely backward with absolute precision. They can transition from a dead stop to full speed in a fraction of a second. If a mosquito tries to dive into a thick bush to hide, the dragonfly simply pivots its wings, shifts its weight, and follows the exact path into the leaves. It navigates through the tightest spaces without losing an inch of speed. It transforms your backyard airspace into a high-octane dogfight where one side has an unmatchable advantage. Scientists are still trying to understand how a brain smaller than a grain of rice can execute these tasks. Neurobiologists have discovered that when a dragonfly hunts, it exhibits a rare trait called selective attention. When you look at a massive swarm of mosquitoes over a birdbath, it looks like a chaotic cloud of moving dots. If a human tried to catch one with their hands, their brain would get confused by the sheer volume of movement, flashing from one dot to another. A dragonfly's nervous system can completely lock onto one single mosquito within a crowd of thousands. It tunes out all the background noise, focuses entirely on the flight path of that single target, and tracks it with absolute focus, even if other mosquitoes fly directly in front of its eyes during the chase. The dragonfly will not switch targets. It finishes the calculation, secures the kill, and only then resets its system for the next target. This level of neurological tracking is incredibly rare in the insect world, usually found only in highly intelligent vertebrate predators. To fully appreciate why losing these creatures is a tragedy, we have to look at what happens before they ever take flight. The dragonfly you see in the air is actually just the final chapter of a long, brutal life story. A dragonfly spends 90% of its life underwater, living as a creature called a nymph. While adult dragonflies rule the air, their aquatic larvae are the absolute terror of the backyard pond or ditch water. They do not look beautiful or iridescent at this stage. They look like prehistoric, armored monsters. And their hunting mechanics underwater are just as terrifying as their aerial interception math. A dragonfly nymph possesses a unique, hidden jaw mechanism called a labium. This jaw is folded up beneath their chin like a mask when they are resting. But when a mosquito larva swims by, the nymph shoots this jaw forward using hydraulic pressure in a fraction of a second. It hooks the prey and drags it back into its mouth before the larva can even flinch. They are so aggressive that large nymphs will actively hunt tadpoles and even small minnows. They are clearing your property of mosquitoes months before the summer heat even arrives. They are eating the larvae right at the source, preventing thousands of mosquitoes from ever growing wings and attacking your local birds. This intense hunting habit is the exact reason why you see them gathering in specific zones of your property. If you have ever walked out on a hot July afternoon, you have probably noticed several dragonflies patrolling right around your birdbath or garden pond. They are not there to rest, and they are not there to drink the water. They are perching on nearby twigs, using that water source as a critical hunting checkpoint. Mosquitoes need standing water to lay eggs and hatch their larvae. Your birdbath, gutters, or an old flower pot collecting rainwater are premier breeding grounds. By staying directly over these spots, dragonflies catch the pests the second they hit the air as adults. They eliminate them as they fly in to deposit a new generation of eggs, breaking the breeding cycle. This creates an immediate buffer zone for the yard, keeping the pest population away from nearby bird nests. It is a natural security system that functions without human intervention. But out here in the wild, there are no permanent alliances or friendships. In a healthy yard ecosystem, the lines between a protector and a meal can blur instantly. The moment the dragonfly thins out the mosquitoes, it becomes the prime target for a bigger hunter in the yard. High up on the oak branches, adult flycatchers and robins are watching the airspace to a parent bird needing to feed a hungry nest. A large, nutrient-rich dragonfly is the ultimate prize. The exact same insect that spent the morning keeping pests away from the tree line can easily be snapped up by an adult bird by the afternoon. It is carried straight back to the nest to be fed to those exact same chicks. It is a shifting, high-stakes system where the dominant hunter of 1 hour becomes the food for the next generation in the next. Because this world is so competitive, getting the details right matters if you want to understand it. If you look at mainstream nature videos online, you will find a surprising amount of bad information and lazy editing. Even big production channels with massive budgets frequently mix up their footage, showing they do not really know the wildlife they are talking about. The most common mistake is filming a fragile insect like a lacewing or a damselfly and calling it a dragonfly. Damselflies are weak flyers. They lack independent wing control, and they are not nearly as successful at hunting. They are a completely separate branch of the evolutionary tree that just happens to look vaguely similar at a distance. If you want to check the accuracy of what is flying in your yard, there is an easy way to tell them apart. Watch how the insect acts when it settles on a branch, a leaf, or a fence post. A damselfly will fold its wings backward, closing them tight and flat against its long body. A true dragonfly cannot do that because of its muscle structure. When a dragonfly lands, its 4 wings remain completely flat and open at a 90-degree angle. It looks like a miniature jet sitting on a runway, wide open and ready to take off the second it senses motion. If the wings are folded, it is an imitation. If the wings are wide open and flat, you are looking at the real deal. This unique structural design ties into one of the oldest pieces of American folklore. Old-timers who spent their lives working the land will always tell you a specific rule about the weather. They will say, when the dragonflies start flying low, right against the grass, get inside because it's about to pour. For generations, people shrugged this off as an old myth or a superstitious tale. But when biology looked closer at how insects react to air pressure, The folklore checked out perfectly. Before a big storm hits, the barometric pressure drops rapidly and the humidity surges. This heavy moisture creates a microscopic layer of condensation that clings to the wings of tiny insects. Gnats, fruit flies, and mosquitoes are heavily impacted by this weight. Because they are so light, the damp air weighs them down, making it impossible for them to maintain altitude in the upper sky. They are forced to drop down to the ground, taking shelter just millimeters above the blades of grass to avoid the storm. The dragonflies, with their larger muscle mass and advanced aerodynamics, are completely unaffected by this shift in humidity. Their brains instantly notice the sudden migration of food. They realize that their entire inventory of prey has been compressed into a tight, dense layer right above the lawn. They do not fly low because they are afraid of the rain, or because they are trying to predict the weather. They dive low because that is where the easy hunting is. They run a massive feeding sweep right along the ground, clearing out the swarm before the first raindrop ever falls. But that natural balance is running into a serious modern problem. Every summer, homeowners look up local exterminators or hop on Yelp to find pest control guys to spray their properties. They panic about mosquitoes, worry about backyard barbecues, and want a quick fix. Trucks arrive to blast chemical fogs along the fence lines, promising a yard completely free of pests. But these intensive yard treatments do not pick and choose their targets. The chemical residue settles on the leaves, coats the bushes, and washes into the water sources. The adult dragonflies flying through the yard are knocked down instantly as the neurotoxins hit their systems. Even worse, the chemical runoff poisons the mud edges, where dragonfly nymphs spend up to several years growing underwater before they ever take flight. By spraying your property, you are actually creating a much bigger long-term pest problem. You are taking out the most effective native defense system you have. You are replacing a constant, natural predator with a temporary chemical fix that washes away in the next heavy rainstorm. And once the treatment wears off, the mosquitoes return faster than before because they reproduce at a rate 10 times faster than predators. With zero natural guardians left to stop them, the swarm takes over the yard. The alternative for a homeowner who wants to protect their yard without destroying this system is remarkably simple. You don't need a quick chemical fix. You just need to manage the environment. By keeping the water in your birdbath fresh and moving, you prevent mosquitoes from laying eggs while giving dragonflies a clean staging area. Adding native aquatic plants like cattails or water lilies around garden ponds gives adult dragonflies the perching spots they need to monitor the yard. If you give them the right natural habitat, they will clear the air for you safely, naturally, and for free. The local birds will thank you. Your lawn will stay healthy. And you get a front row seat to the most successful air show on Earth. It is a self-sustaining cycle that has worked for millions of years. And all it requires from us is to step back and let nature run its course. The next time the summer heat hits and the insects start to swarm, walk out onto the back porch and look past the grass for the interceptors, patrolling the perimeter, keeping the balance, one flawless execution at a time. So give them the space to do their job.